So we have been chronicling this story over the past few weeks, but the Detroit Red Wings aren't looking all too great right now. The team had a great season, up until the start of March, where things started to fall apart, the losses started to pile up, and the wins for all the opposing teams battling for that last wildcard spot started pouring in like a rainy day. Philadelphia is winning games like crazy. The Boston Bruins have essentially locked themselves into a playoff spot. The Senators cannot stop getting results, and the Blue Jackets are hanging in there too. The Detroit Red Wings are on the outside looking in. And there has been a pretty big conversation as to what could happen with this team, depending on what happens over the next few days here. Who stays, who goes, and what's the deal with the man who makes the decision, Steve Yzerman? Well, let's dive into what Elliotte Friedman spoke about on 32 Thoughts on March 30th as to what he's thinking about in regards to Stevie Y and the Detroit Red Wings. The idea is that Steve Yzerman's job might be in trouble if Detroit doesn't make the playoffs. Elliotte Friedman theorizes, what if Yzerman moves up to the president of hockey operations role, and someone like Chris Draper or Sean Horkoff gets promoted to GM? Now, this idea is a fairly new one. I had seen some people on Twitter, social media, going out there and suggesting that there could be an open spot for Steve Yzerman above the general manager position, depending on what goes down over the next few weeks. But for Elliotte Friedman to suggest that it's actually a thing worth thinking about on his podcast, I think is pretty interesting. At the end of the day, Steve Yzerman has been a part of the Detroit Red Wings in this role since 2019. It's going up on 7 years here. And generally speaking, if a GM is unable to take his team from what is essentially the end of one rebuild into the start of another, and then trying to make the playoffs only to fail multiple years in a row, if it takes 7 years to do that, usually that GM would be in the hot seat. But not Steve Yzerman with the Detroit Red Wings. I think there are many external elements that contribute to Red Wings fandom for this guy, and it's very obvious to see why. He is a legend in Michigan. He was one of the best Red Wings of all time, and we cannot go out there and ignore that. And you also have the benefit of the doubt that says, hey, Stevie Y took over a team that was getting high draft picks and continuing to lose out on top spots in the NHL Draft. 2020, they were the worst team in the league, and they ended up slipping from first overall to fourth. Now, you can say whether or not that actually was a blessing in disguise for the Red Wings, but it doesn't shy away the idea that this team has just been down in the dumps for a long time. And the excuse of saying, hey, the team is still in a rebuild, the team is still improving, the team is still in that transitory period, that excuse is always going to be there, and it's going to continue being there essentially for the entire time that the Red Wings are trying to scuff it up and get into the postseason. Until they actually make the dance and make some sort of an impact in the playoffs, this transitory period of the Red Wings is going to subsist for most fans who are analyzing this team, no matter how close they get. Now, sure, you can say that this season was like the worst time for us to be talking about it because, quite frankly, the Wings were a top 5 team in the NHL just a few weeks ago, and now they're outside the Eastern Conference playoff picture looking in, no longer in control of their own fate, and they have to win, realistically, 6 or 7 games out of their remaining sample to have a realistic chance at making it. Is that worthy for changing up the GM? If it wasn't the Red Wings and it wasn't Yzerman, you could probably say, yeah. But now, because Red Wings fans love this guy, because he is going to have that benefit of the doubt, and because of the fact that the Red Wings have not necessarily gone the distance so far, I think it does open the possibility that we can talk about other names being tossed into that mix, and whether or not Steve Yzerman is in the Red Wings organization to see that through as a president rather than a general manager himself. There are a number of people that are replying to this tweet made by NHL Trade Alert, discussing whether or not Chris Draper would be a good GM, whether or not he'd actually be worse. Do you want to go out there and hire him to be your general manager just because he's in the organization? Or would it be more preferable to go after somebody that actually has experience? There are a number of ways that you can tackle the idea of the Red Wings changing their GM, but not necessarily firing Steve Yzerman. Instead, just promoting him. And if that is the case, I wonder what kind of dynamic we will see between the Detroit Red Wings, the guys they have up top, and the guys that are on top of them as well. I know in Vancouver, it's a little bit of a puppeteering job that we are seeing these days from Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin's point of view. Sometimes, even though he's the GM, he's not going to be involved in the biggest decisions that the team is making. Patrick Allvin didn't trade Quinn Hughes. It was Jim Rutherford who did it, essentially. So, could we see some sort of a similar dynamic there with the way the Detroit Red Wings handle their business? We know Stevie Y is a vault. We know that teams that are managed by him don't let anything leak out into the press. And so, is that standard going to be applied even further if there's another guy who is in charge of the GMing? And where exactly do the conversations go on what kind of team do the Red Wings want to be? Are they going to change up significantly the plan and what kind of players they go for? And how does Todd McClellan's preference play into all this as well? Sean Horkoff's name also being tossed in there as well is really interesting. I kind of want to see what different versions of this team would come out of either of these guys' generally managing the trades and the free agency decisions. Stevie Y got a lot of credit for building the Tampa Bay Lightning and putting that foundation into place that became a Stanley Cup juggernaut for years to come. Maybe the same thing could happen here in Detroit. He puts the core in place, he puts together the main pieces, but then another GM comes in and puts all the finishing touches, the icing on the cake, the seasoning on the steak, everything that brings it all together and actually gets those results. Or a brand new person like Chris Draper comes in as a first-time NHL GM and he makes bad decisions and it doesn't work and the team looks even worse in 5 years than it did now. It's all possible, right? So, with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of the Detroit Red Wings promoting Steve Yzerman and using a guy like Sean Horkoff or Chris Draper as their brand new general manager? Is this a realistic idea? Do you think Elliotte Friedman has something that he's not saying publicly on the air? And the fact that Friedman is even talking about it in the first place, I think it's significant. Do you? Thoughts in the comment section below about what the Red Wings should do with their future. They go out there and play off later today against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins, by the way, absolutely stomped on the New York Islanders yesterday, much to my dismay. My opponent in my Fantasy Hockey League finals had Rust and Raquel, and I got Igor Chinakhov. Guess who got points and guess who did not get any points? Chinakhov did not get any points. He was the only forward for Pittsburgh yesterday that didn't get anything on the board. Meanwhile, Rust and Raquel were both double-point guys against the Isles yesterday. My opponent also has Braden Shen, too, and he scored for New York as well. So, yeah. The Red Wings are playing off against that Penguins team that just destroyed the Isles yesterday. Hopefully, for my sake, DeBrincat, Raymond, go out there and do some damage, and hopefully Igor Chinakhov does too. But that's neither here nor there. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. We'll make some more videos about the Red Wings as their playoff hunt continues, but for now, we shall wait and see what happens against the Pens. Thoughts in the comments section about this Yzerman promotion idea. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.